I am back with Congresswoman Summer Lee from Pennsylvania's 12th District. Congresswoman, thank you so much for coming back for this little follow-up episode of Building the Bench.
Of course. I feel like I said I would be back. So
you did.
If I said that, I kept my word.
Yeah, we are not in the sexy, cool studio today, but I'm happy to be here.
As soon as somebody mentioned to me, I was like, oh, that was the studio I really liked. It was real sexy. I really enjoyed it.
No, I whenever people come up, I feel like we end up spending like the first 5 minutes before we waited of like just chatting about like, wait, how'd you find it? This is so cool. There's so many plants everywhere. So, for anybody who's listening to the podcast version, there are great clips where you get to see the sexy studio if you check those out on socials. But to kick things off, Congresswoman Lee, you talked a couple times in your first Building the Bench episode about, things about, DC that grind your gears. What in DC this week is grinding your gears?
You know what? And I know that this is going to sound weird, but DC was so bad when we came back after the shutdown that the bar was on the floor. Yeah. Right. We came back and it was just like censures. That's all we were doing. It just felt like a waste of taxpayer dollars. So I think the thing that is grinding my gear is that we're 3 years. I've been in Congress now for 3 years. Yeah. It's been Republican held the whole time. And I still have no evidence that the people who run the House actually want to run the House.
Or have plans for things now.
I don't think they have a single plan. I think that they bring us here just on a whim. Like they're still not passing rules. Like they're still not able to do basic things that before, like last year, these things were we called them unprecedented, right? Like rules not passing, them not being able to get the votes for themselves, right? All that stuff was unprecedented. So it's just like, it's an incredibly embarrassing, it's an incredible waste of time. And I just think that it's such a disservice to the American people. So I have to sit through that a lot. But it's also a reminder of how important it is that we build a bench, right? It's important that we keep doing that, right? That we bring more serious people here because this is not a serious, they're not serious folks who are leading us right now.
Well, okay. I actually would love to kind of work into this because I think the good thing, it's like right now, do Democrats control any of the levers of power in Congress? No, they don't. But I do think people want to see plans. And I think that is what you are seeing from Democrats right now. At least make proposals on, we want to see this, whether it's healthcare. I want to talk about, a little bit later, your the bill you proposed on AI civil rights this past week. I want to hear a little bit more about that. But I think sometimes, yes, this feeling of, well, we're not in power, so we can't make proposals. I think the American people still want to see it so they can see the blueprint that Democrats have for when they're back in power.
They have to see it. Democrats will not get back in power if we can't demonstrate that we have a plan that is people-centered, that will excite them, that will make them feel like they can trust the institution, they can trust the process, and they can trust those of us who are asking to go back. So I think that especially when we're in the minority, like that's the time that we're supposed to say, like, we're not them. And not only we're not them, right? Here are all the ways that we are not them. Here are all the things that we will do when we have control. Here are the things that we're doing now to build for that, right? Because trust is not something that we're going to get just on election day. And I think that if anybody is thinking that we're just going to turn up on election day and be able to say, well, we weren't Trump, I think that last cycle should have shown us that that's not going to be enough. Yeah. We have to have proposals that resonate with the American people, right? So that's why, obviously, dealing with AI, the healthcare crisis, right? The Republican Party, they are the crisis. And of them comes many other crises. Dealing with them is good policy. It's good politics.
On the healthcare note, so next week, this vote on the ACA subsidy extension is supposed to take place in the House. Where does all of that stand right now? I know it changes and it's really fluid, but what are you hearing? What are you seeing from inside the House about where these subsidy extensions might go? Do you think there's a realistic chance of them being passed? And do you think it will be a bipartisan situation where there is some sort of extension of the ACA subsidies?
I love the multi questions,
Yeah,
right?
I know.
Let me know, because it's like I want to first start by saying, right, that these things like changes, like these conversations happen in real time. And if I had to say the second thing that frustrates me about Congress is that too often we find out stuff sometimes from the same sources that you find out things. When it comes to this, right, there are bipartisan efforts, right, that we've heard of, right? There are like Republicans like Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania, right, who is, I believe, who I hear is working on one of the proposals, right? I think he will be one that has a discharge petition on the ACA extension, right? Obviously, the Democrats want an extension that gives us so much more breathing room, because why would we keep bringing people to the brink if we don't have to?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you hear the Republicans who are looking for any excuse to allow Americans to just fall off the cliff, right? Because that's what this is. If you're talking about a 1-year extension, then you're just trying to give them enough runway to fall off a different cliff, right? And that's fundamentally what this argument is about. I have seen no indication that Mike Johnson is taking this serious, even as his own members recognize that their constituents are suffering, right?
Well,
It's not just Democratic constituents whose premiums are going to triple. It is Republicans as well. And I think that if a discharge petition were to come to the floor, I think it would get a vote. And I think it would get a positive vote. But without a discharge petition, right, I'm interested to see Mike Johnson actually do something positive for people.
well, you hit on an important point, which is that for, the Medicaid expansion that has allowed for the increase of people to get on the ACA exchanges, a lot of that money is disproportionately gone to red states,
Yes.
and red districts. And so these cuts are going to hit those people the hardest. And I know you see some Republicans who seem to understand that and are having their like, oh shit moment, because they realize like, oh wait, I have 70,000 constituents who are, going to lose their healthcare as a result of losing these subsidies. And then you have some who I think are just hoping that they're going to run out the clock and somehow be able to like escape accountability for it. But that's what it feels like, at least to me right now. It feels like a little bit like a running out the clock moment. And I'm sure there are people who are already falling off the cliff right now.
Yeah. And to be clear, I think history shows that they typically are able to run out the clock, right? Accountability just does not exist for Republicans in the same ways that it exists for anybody else, right? Even when we think about the shutdown, when we think about just the conversations that were taking place in the media, conversations that were taking place, through, our own individual platforms, right? It's always this both sides. If anytime that there is a accountability sharing model, Republicans win. Because the reality is that they just made the largest cuts to Medicaid in history a few months ago. They had already made the largest cuts to SNAP benefits, right? Before we got to, this huge crisis of SNAP running out, there was very little reporting that actually said the SNAP is already a funded program, right? The judge already said that Trump has to fund it, right? They get off over and over and over again. So right now, why would this be any different, right? So on the one hand, yeah, absolutely. Their constituents will be harmed, undoubtedly, probably more than most. And that shouldn't be the reason why a Republican does the right thing. But if that's the thing that gets them right now to sign on to an extension that actually saves lives, then we'll take it. But what we need fundamentally is for a shift in the way that we, the people, deal with the Republican Party, right? That we have to be committed to holding them to an actual standard. And if we were to do that, we would see that they miss it every single time.
Have you felt the shift that a lot of people seem to be feeling right now about, you see all this polling on Donald Trump's poll numbers and the fact that he's, went from a net positive with young people under 30 at the beginning of his term, and now he's at a net negative 35. And you have a lot of examples like that. You have Democratic overperformance in recent elections. Are you feeling that sea change? Are you seeing it on the ground in your district? And do you think it's going to stick?
So my district is, of course, I believe it's a very sensible district, right? Of people who already saw what was happening here, right? When we look at the entire country, Western Pennsylvania was one of the few areas in the entire country that did not budge. Where you saw this right lean all over the country, we didn't, right? We didn't have that. So we already knew what it was. So I can't use my district, right, as the standard here.
They're pulling their hair out because they've watched everybody else.
Yeah, we already did. We were already where we needed to be.
Yeah.
Right. And hopefully we'll be where we need to be next time. As for will it last? It will last if we make it. And I think that right now it's one of the most important things. One of the most important things that we recognize is that momentum is not an inherent thing. Like this is not a pendulum, right? And I think that sometimes we think it is, right? It's like, okay, well, this is our turn. It's the blue team's turn.
Yeah.
next
Without
time
having
is
to
their
put in the
turn.
work.
Yeah, we have to work. We have to work, because if it was enough to just say that Donald Trump is bad, then Donald Trump wouldn't have gotten back in office, because people already saw the most disastrous administration from 2016, to 22. And many people voted for him again anyways, right? They already knew what Project 2025 proposed. Maybe not everyone, but it wasn't like they were obscuring what they were doing, who they are. And people need to see Democrats explaining who we are, Democrats choosing who will serve. And I think that this is such an exciting and important opportunity that we do this, right? That we read the tea leaves, right? That we see the energy of Democrats, some of whom are of Americans, right? Some of whom are horrified that our country could, if you are not someone who believes that we are already in an authoritarian regime, then you at least recognize that we're closer than we should ever be. Some of us already recognize that we're there.
Yep. Okay. On that note, for talking about what the priorities are and what the party should be talking about, I think sometimes there is this question of like, okay, obviously Democrats have done very well in these special elections running on the affordability narrative. Outside of that, are you one of those people that's like, okay, we need to just affordability. Let's make that the focus. Or do you think Democrats can kind of walk and chew gum and talk about other issues as well that are still important?
I'm always a big fan. Listen, I think that it will vary. You talk about the things that are important to people, right? Fundamentally, you find the things that matter to people and you demonstrate an understanding of it. You demonstrate, a commitment to it, right? And yeah, affordability is an umbrella that typically encapsulates that, right? Because what American doesn't believe that they should be able to go to the grocery store and afford to eat for the week, right? What American doesn't see the rising costs and see the rising costs and also see the greatest tax cuts in history for the millionaires, right? We keep seeing that. So yeah, affordability is a catch-all because it's able to encompass so much, right? You want to talk about public transportation, there is an affordability tie into that, right? You're talking about housing, affordability, grocery prices, gas prices, electricity prices, affordability, right? But also, I think that the key is not buzzwords. The key is deeply understanding your people. And I think that more than just like adopting the buzzword of affordability, it is demonstrating that you care, you see, you hear, you care, and you adapt to that. That's what my suggestion would be.
No, I think you're right. I think there's so much, there's a lot of bluster, obviously, that we see from the administration. And then when that bluster and kind of those like taglines and vibe lines are like tested or pushed back on at all, they all kind of collapse because there isn't a real firm plan, at least for anything that we see we see it on immigration. There doesn't seem to be a plan. Kristi Noem just testified in front of the Homeland Security Committee and talked to a bunch of different people from DHS, and Democrats were pressuring them. None of these people have any idea what's going on. They were asked, why do you keep deporting veterans and citizens and military spouses and people with kids who are in the military? And it's this narrative of, well, we're just deporting violent criminals. And it's like, well, it's not. We just brought 100 examples of when that's not the case. And there seems to be no smart response from them about how they're going about these things and why.
To be clear, I don't think that they're the smart. I don't think they're the brightest bulbs on the tree.
You're right.
But also, I do not want to ever estimate them, because a part of what is happening right now is not that there's not a smart response. It's that their response is a lie, because the lie is building up to what they're fighting towards, right? Yep. That for an authoritarian regime, for this fascism that we are seeing, right? The lie is a part of it. Inflaming these racial tensions, these regional tensions, that is a part of the plan. So yeah, maybe they're not at the stage where they'll just admit it, where they're just like, actually, you know what? I don't even know where Somalia is, but I need you to feel like they're an other, right? I don't know the difference between, this type of visa and that type of visa, or this type of immigration status or that one, but I need an other, right? Maybe they're not to the point that they are saying it outwardly, but that is what they're saying. And that's what they're doing. And they're doing it because this politics of fear, this politics
it works,
of
unfortunately.
it's how they maintain power.
Yeah.
They can't maintain control if we have a country where the working class of whatever racial or ethnic or religious background, like if we have a coalition movement that builds that type of coalition, they could never win again. So what they realized is that they had to break up that coalition. They had to pit people against each other, because there was no pathway forward for them without that.
Well, okay. So I guess leads me to another question then. I mean, you're talking about messaging and plans, and Democrats needing to have more than buzzwords. But like, obviously we live in this world where it's like 30-second clips, and you have only so much time to get people's attention. And so you almost have to mix this like brevity with a plan at the same time. Like what is an example of that you've seen, even like maybe candidates say over the past few elections, that you feel like, wow, that person said something that was like short, sweet, to the point, and people really got it?
That's so funny. We are not short, sweet people. Brevity is the soul of wit, and we just disavow that. But
yeah.
And you know what? I hate to say that. I think the example that resonates best with me, honestly, is Azora Mamdani, right? It's like, no matter what the hit is from the right, he immediately sees it, ties it right back into his thing. Oh, you want to talk about my religion? But let me tell you about why New Yorkers need to have free bus fare, right?
Yep.
He doesn't get distracted by, the red. He doesn't get distracted by the fallacy. He doesn't get distracted, by the bull. He keeps it focused. So that is, in a sense, that it is brief, right? It keeps people, because it's never a frolic, right? He's not frolicking. He's not they need us to take the detour.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. And I think, like, to me, I thought it was a great lesson learned from that election in general, was like, you had Mamdani, you had Mikey Sherrill, and you had Abigail Spanberger, very different ends of the spectrum, but they all took a laser focus, a locally lasered focus on affordability. For Mikey Sherrill was freezing utility rates. For Abigail Spanberger, it was about going after predatory medical billing. And for Zoran, he obviously had these three. I'm a big fan of the rule of three. So I'm like, anytime, and honestly, that's kind of what Donald Trump did in 2016. If you think about it, it was like, build the wall, repeal and replace, and lock her up.
Drain the swamp.
And drain the swamp. And people just like knew those things inherently. And I think you're right that Mamdani did a really good job of, freeze the rent, free buses, and free childcare. Like, people, that stuff sticks. And I think you're right. It's like, it actually is possible to convey a plan in 3 words for people who don't really want much more than that. And of course, there's a whole.
And it's not a buzzword because there's an authenticity behind it, and because it's real, right? You're not posturing, right? You're not like saying something because you want to capture somebody. You're saying it because it's what you believe, and when you believe it, people believe it too.
Okay, then on that note, actually, a question, because I think something that I enjoyed that he got asked during the election was, people were like, well, are you actually going to be able to do any of this stuff? And he's like, well, I would be dumb not to try. And at the end of the day, I'm going to be able to go out there and said I work my ass off to try and make it happen. What is something what do you think Democrats should embrace that is a policy like that, where you're like, we should try for this regardless of if we have 100% certainty it's going to work out?
My number one is always going to be getting money out of politics, ending Citizen United. That is the thing, because when we show that we're willing to fight on that, right, it's not good enough for us to keep saying, oh man, that money in politics is really keeping us from being able to do all these things. But it is, right? So people want to see that our jerseys are dirty, right? Like, they want to see that we're willing to get into the mud to actually do something about it, right? Money in politics is a big one. Oh man, Medicare for all is one that's just been sitting there, right? Obviously, we're in a healthcare crisis right now. The majority of Americans never want to be in a healthcare crisis again. Like, we are the wealthiest nation on earth, and people are struggling to afford, right, their basic healthcare.
Okay, can I ask you on the money in politics front? Because this banning individual stock trading thing, it feels like it pops up every single month and it never gets across the finish line. What is the holdup this time around? I feel like it's been bubbling up again, but it's still, does it look like it might get to a vote maybe by the end of the year?
I don't know if it's by the end of the year, but I think actually it's moving. And I'm actually a little shocked. I will say that like these discharge petitions, it is the only mechanism that we have to bypass like a majoritarian kind of rule, right? If Mike Johnson doesn't want to bring it to the floor, that can be the holdup. That can be the only holdup. But right now, there actually are Republicans who are for banning stock trading. And they put their money where their mouth is. Like they're on one of the petitions. Now I hear we're going to have another petition, a couple other petitions, neither here nor there, but there are Republicans on it. And I hear that it's like at least like 14, 15. So this seems far more real than it has. And similarly to like Epstein, it's a drumbeat that isn't stopping.
Yeah.
In fact, the pace is quickening. So it's one of those things that isn't going away. I think for Democrats too, the anti-corruption package is, I think the country is so tender right now. So don't trust, we really don't trust these institutions. We have to demonstrate that we're willing to put our money where our mouth is, right? That we're willing to say that like we can't lead you if we're corrupt ourselves, if we're not addressing the corruption that we see. We gotta with boondoggle, the system. So the Stock Trading Act is one of those things. That's why people are excited about it, because everybody thinks Congress people are already millionaires. I am not. They think we are already.
Put it on record.
I'm not.
I think it's one of those things where like, I mean, you're right. It's like the stock trading thing, or it's even people like when it comes to lobbying. I mean, people don't want to feel like their member is getting into Congress so they can go get a cushy lobbying job the second they leave the House. And I think it's that stuff where you're right, where I think we're watching such a fever pitch moment of corruption within this administration. I mean, with not only the self-enrichment or the enrichment of people with their, within all the closest circles of Donald Trump's world, but, even just stuff like, that damn ballroom and all of the
court,
Fortune
like
50,
the Supreme Court guys getting flown out, right?
Yeah,
it's everywhere. And it's so in our face right now.
And so I think you're right, where it's all so popular and common sense that it's like, you'd be hard pressed to find truly even like a far right MAGA person who would say, I wish more of my members were trading individual stocks in Congress. It's good for nobody.
Insider trading, right? Like not even just saying trading, like insider trading. I think that's one of those things when it comes to the floor, it will get an upvote.
Well, so a couple more questions and then I will let you go. And kind of on this, that, I guess the note of corruption and kind of insider dealing, all that stuff. AI regulation, you proposed this bill last week. It's an AI civil rights bill. Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, so I mean, AI is all the rage, right? Like we are just seeing such a proliferation of just the use of AI in everyday life. People, right, who are not able to tell fact from fiction. Now, add that to we'll get back to that, right? Add it to just the uncertainty that we already have around campaigns, whole different thing.
Yeah.
But one of the uses, like some of the uses that people don't think about as much, right, or the use of like these algorithmic systems to make life-changing decisions for people. Housing, right? Like there are people who have already like been denied housing because an algorithm flagged them for something that is not real, right? And just like everything else, right? AI is trained. People have to train. There is no such thing as artificial intelligence, right? Real human intelligence is training it.
And it's trained based on what it finds on the internet.
Yes. Yeah. The more we pour into it, the smarter the AI is able to predict or what have you. Well, people are biased. People have racist intent and implicit racism, implicit biases. Whether they're implicit or explicit, we feed them into the algorithm when we train AI. So what this bill would do is to create those guardrails to make sure that these algorithms are being checked, right? Like we're not able to have algorithms that are allowed to really basically get around federal laws, right? A human being could not deny you housing because you're Black or you're Muslim or you're Jewish, right? An AI should not be able to do it either.
Yeah. I mean, do you see any even bipartisan appetite for some form of AI regulation? Because I feel like I see so many articles about it of like, we are behind the 8 ball on this. And by the time it feels like we catch up, it's going to be too late. Is there any of that feeling within Congress right now?
So that's my deep fear, is that we're not on the right track with this. Like we are absolutely behind, right? It's already a frightening landscape. And I think that we are in such a deregulation moment that Republicans feel like that's a part of their identity, right? That it is a core part of being a Republican, that they must automatically be for deregulation, for less government. And and because of that, I don't think that they're seeing clearly how dangerous this can be if we do not mitigate the harms. But also, one of the bigger harms around it is the racial bias, right?
Yeah.
It's the gendered bias or whatever. Well, this goes directly and plays directly into their kind of xenophobic worldview that they've been creating this term, right? The anti-diversity, equity, and inclusion policies, right? The or allowing, racial profiling through ICE, right? All of these things are part and parcel to what we are attempting to regulate and get on top of. So well, I don't see them helping us right now, but we need to get them there.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the thing. It's like, I know people, Democrats winning back the House, it is not going to magically solve everybody's problem. But I think the hope is that in order to maybe try to get something done, that like at least Democrats winning back the House at least forces some sort of, forces at least moderate Republicans to come to the table and start at least talking about, are the world's biggest problems going to get solved in the 2 years with a split legislature? No, but hopefully some things like this and like smart AI regulation and stuff like that might actually, have the needle moved a little bit as a result of, Democrats being back in House.
Okay. Organizing, right? And again, nothing moves from the inside, right? I hate to be I'm a congressperson, y'all. I hate to be the one to say this, but when you think of any of the big landmark like bills that made it through Congress, right? Like the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, which is about to be gutted by a corrupt Supreme Court, right? But any of those things, it was people from the outside who were organized, who were mobilized, and who were putting pressure on Congress like nothing that we see today. So part of this is that we the people, need to take this up as an important issue. We need to make this central to kind of how when people campaign, where are you on AI? AI is now. AI is right now, and it is like the issue of today, and it can't just be something that no one focuses on.
Yep. I remember what you said in your episode. Use the power of your labor, the power of your dollar, and the power of your voice. And I think
do it every day.
Right. Yeah. Okay. I got one last question for you, then I'm going to let you go. Fun one. Holidays are coming up. I remember you said you love to do, like a Sunday brunch at your mom's house, all that stuff. What's a fun holiday tradition you have with your family?
I'm not gonna call it fun. My mom insists. So my mom does insist on doing a Christmas Eve party.
Okay.
And she will not let us have this party. Just like every year, we're like, I don't know, maybe we'll just be chill. And even like we've canceled it before, and just everybody showed up. So it is like, I know, right?
Come
so
hell or high water, it's happening.
They just came. So it's like it's the one time a year. My family came. I want to say thank you to my Caribbean and particularly Puerto Rican siblings, because I have appropriated coquito.
Yeah.
So I will be introducing that to my Black family, and I hope that they're okay with that.
Okay,
I hope well, but I'm excited about that.
I was going to say you gotta put in the work, help your mom, and,
I'm gonna put in the work.
Make her have a good time. Okay. On that note, Congresswoman Summer Lee from Pennsylvania's 12th district. I always have a blast. I could talk to you for hours, and you always just get me like pumped up to go back out there and just like grind. So you did it again today. I appreciate your time. And, as you know, my door is always open. I love to chat. Come back whenever you want.
Same. I do too. So until the next time.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks and happy holidays.